She was too ugly for any man, until a heartbroken billionaire said, "You are perfect to me." The rumors started before she ever learned to defend herself. Children laughed at her in school corridors, whispering that her eyes were too wide, her lips too thin, her face too plain to ever be loved. Strangers glanced past her as if she were invisible, as if her existence were an inconvenience. Even mirrors felt cruel, reflecting back a version of herself the world had convinced her was unworthy of affection. Every birthday candle she ever blew carried the same silent wish, "Please, just let someone see me, really see me." Yet the world remained cold, and every year that passed only hardened the belief that she would live her entire life unseen, untouched by admiration, undeserving of love. But fate has a way of testing the strongest hearts, and sometimes the most broken souls find each other when the world least expects it, one starved for love, the other wounded by it, and together they learn that beauty is not found in perfection, but in the courage to be seen. Sparkles before the story goes deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unseen beauty within every human heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more stories like this reach people who need hope. Sparkles. Her name was Liana, and life had taught her to lower her gaze whenever she walked the streets of the small city she called home. She worked mornings at a modest bakery, where the comforting smell of warm vanilla and cinnamon wrapped around her like a fragile shield. Customers came and went, barely glancing at her as she packed loaves and pastries into paper bags. She had memorized the ritual: smile politely, speak softly, disappear quickly. People looked through her, beyond her, past her, as though she were a ghost made of skin and silent breath. But she endured, because with every loaf she sold, she earned enough to support her mother, who lay bedridden in their tiny apartment full of faded photographs and wilted flowers. Liana spent her afternoons caring for her mother, whose eyes once sparkled like light scattered on water, but now dulled by illness and time. There were days when her mother's hands trembled too much to hold a cup, days when pain etched deep lines into her fragile face. Yet her voice remained gentle, always reminding Liana that the world was wrong about her. "Beauty isn't what they say it is," she would whisper. "Beauty is how you love, how you endure, how you rise again." But Liana struggled to believe those words, for every reminder of her supposed plainness came not just from strangers, but occasionally from people she once trusted, especially the man she once thought she loved. Elias had been her first crush, a childhood friend whose laughter once filled her summers. She confessed her feelings to him when she was 16, trembling with hope, only to hear laughter spill from his lips, laughter that spread to his friends like a cruel wildfire. "You're too ugly. No man would ever choose you," he had said, and the words carved themselves into her heart like a scar that refused to fade. She never spoke of love to anyone again, believing that she was built for loneliness. Years passed, but those words lived inside her, whispering every time she saw her reflection, every time someone's eyes skimmed past her without stopping. Meanwhile, in a world far beyond her imagination, a man named Adrian Cole lived inside a fortress of success and loneliness. The media called him a billionaire, a business prodigy, the youngest CEO to build a global empire before the age of 30. People worshipped his achievements, envied his wealth, and whispered in awe of his limitless charm. But beneath the crisp suits, luxury cars, and penthouse apartments, Adrian was a man carrying grief heavy enough to break his own heart. The woman he once loved, his fiancée, had been taken from him in a tragic accident, one that unfolded on a rainy highway lit by lightning and loss. He had held her hand as her life slipped away, promising her that one day he would love again, though he never truly believed it possible. Adrian built walls taller than skyscrapers, surrounding his heart with silence. No amount of money eased the ache he felt at night, when memories flickered like old film reels, playing scenes of laughter and promises now buried beneath earth and time. He attended business meetings, signed contracts, traveled across continents, yet the emptiness remained. People admired him, desired him, envied his life, but none ever saw him. And just like Liana, he wondered if anyone ever truly would again. One crisp autumn afternoon, their worlds collided not with fireworks, but with quiet coincidence. Adrian's personal driver had fallen ill, and for the first time in years, he walked alone through a part of town he barely knew, searching for a quiet place to gather his thoughts. He passed the bakery just as Liana stepped outside to discard a box of day-old pastries. Autumn sunlight filtered through the trees, illuminating her tired eyes and quiet features. Adrian didn't recognize her, didn't know her pain or her story, but something about her expression stopped him mid-step. There was a quiet sadness in her gaze, the kind only those who have truly suffered could recognize. It was not the sadness of a temporary sorrow, but the ache of years spent feeling unworthy. Adrian knew that feeling too well. For a moment, they simply stood there, strangers bound by invisible threads of loss and longing. Liana lowered her eyes, as she always did, expecting him to ignore her. But he didn't move. He didn't look away. Instead, he gently asked if she was all right, his voice carrying a warmth she hadn't heard in years. Her breath caught in her throat, and the words she wanted to speak tangled within her chest. She nodded silently, retreating back into the bakery, convinced he would forget her by the time the door closed behind her. But Adrian didn't forget. Something about the way she carried herself, the quiet resilience beneath her sadness, lingered in his mind long after he walked away. It reminded him of the strength his fiancée once admired in people, the kind of beauty that life couldn't steal. Days later, he returned, not once, but again and again, ordering coffee he barely drank, pastries he didn't finish, all to catch a glimpse of Liana's gentle presence. He noticed the way her hands trembled slightly when she spoke, the way she stood a little smaller than she truly was, as though trying to take up less space. He saw beauty not in her features, but in the kindness in her eyes when she helped elderly customers carry boxes, in the patience in her voice when children counting coins struggled to afford cookies, in the quiet strength she radiated even on days when exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. One afternoon, while paying for his coffee, Adrian saw a group of young women at a nearby table laughing in Liana's direction. He recognized the same cruel tone he once heard in high school hallways, the same mocking glances that made people feel small. Liana pretended not to hear, but Adrian saw the familiar flicker of pain flash across her face. Something inside him tightened, an instinct to protect, to soothe, to reach out to someone whose invisible wounds mirrored his own. He stayed longer that day, watching from a quiet corner. As the bakery closed, Liana walked home through fading daylight, unaware that Adrian followed from a respectful distance, ensuring she reached her apartment safely. To him, she was not invisible, she was someone trying to survive in a world that rarely showed mercy. Over time, Adrian found reasons to visit the bakery earlier, buying more than he needed just to spend a few extra minutes near her. Liana, hesitant and unsure, struggled to understand why someone like him, so polished, so admired, would show kindness to someone like her. She feared hope, because hope had betrayed her before. But Adrian didn't rush her. He showed patience, giving her space, letting her speak when she was ready, and slowly, the walls around her heart began to crack. He learned about her mother's illness and arranged quiet help without ever taking credit, ensuring medication arrived on time and hospital bills became lighter. Liana noticed the changes but never suspected Adrian's involvement. She simply believed luck had finally touched her life. What she didn't know was that Adrian wasn't trying to rescue her, he was trying to honor the love he once lost by helping someone who deserved to feel valued. Seasons shifted, and as winter's chill softened into spring's warmth, Liana began to feel a quiet transformation blooming within her. She started lifting her chin when she walked, looking people in the eye, realizing that maybe beauty wasn't defined by what others saw, but by how she lived, how she cared, how she persisted. Adrian saw the change too, and with every step she took forward, his admiration deepened, not for her appearance, but for her spirit. Yet the world still held shadows. One evening, Liana encountered Elias again, the childhood crush who once shattered her confidence. He smirked at her in a crowded market, making the same cruel remarks, reminding her of every insecurity she fought to overcome. Liana